Welcome to the CRO Talk Series, focused on the role and need for the CRO. At Markets and Markets, we find this a very relevant conversation, given that we work with clients to drive revenue impact, and the CRO is the key revenue driving role. I believe each of you will find this discussion and this series fascinating, because in this, you will see experts who have been CROs, you will see venture capitalists, you will see founders, you will see a whole ecosystem around B2B SaaS startups, actually focusing on how growth can be driven in an environment where customer value is paramount and customer choice is a given. Additionally, disruption has become a norm. Whether it is what genomics is doing to healthcare or 5G to the technology industry, drones to aerospace, EVs to auto, or sustainability to every industry. In this perfect storm, at Markets and Markets, we continue to look to help progressive CROs use the right kind of market intelligence to drive unique customer value and expand addressable markets to drive revenue impact. Do enjoy the session. All the very best.
Good day, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you once again to the Markets and Markets Chief Revenue Officer Talk Series. Most CROs typically grow up the hierarchy by excelling at sales, marketing, and various other revenue functions. However, once in the CRO role, they take on this very new challenge of making all customer-facing teams work in harmony towards the end goal of customer delight. For today's session, we have a leader whose company has played a key part in building this magical technology backbone, which we all call the internet. He spent a significant part of his corporate career in the networking business, taking on the CRO role a few years back. In today's call, we will discuss his experiences in running a business that is being transformed every day by software, the need for a CRO to stay on top of industry disruptions, and his best practices on leading with influence. That being said, it's my great pleasure to welcome our guest speaker for the day, Marcus Jewell, and our series host, Devdeep Sengupta. Marcus Jewell leads Juniper's go-to-market functions worldwide. As the head of a company with a vision to connect anything and everything in the cloud era, he focuses on helping their customers realize fast and lasting value. Today's businesses move fast and help customers keep up with the speed of change. There is not necessarily one end goal here of revenue, because the transformation of business and technology just does not stop. His teams adapt and overcome challenges with constant innovation that drives them towards success. Throughout his career, Marcus has worked closely with his team, his partners, and customers to adapt and overcome challenges that prevent their businesses from achieving true growth and achieving aspirational goals. Our host for the series, Deep, you already know, has a proven track record of building a winning culture, inspiring next generation leaders, and transforming legacy software businesses towards cloud. Deep is the President and Chief Revenue Officer for Cloud4C, a global cloud managed services company, which helps large and mid-sized enterprises in their cloud transformation journeys. Previously, as the President for SAP India and South Asia, Deep was an integral part of SAP's senior leadership team for Asia Pacific and Japan. Deep's passion for growth-oriented businesses have led him to work with startups in B2B SaaS. As an investor and a board advisor, he currently helps them with their GTM and growth strategies across people, products, process, and pipeline. Deep, over to you.
Thank you, Vinod. Thanks for the welcome again. I'm happy to and delighted to have Marcus with us today. Marcus, good morning to you. I know it's pretty early for your time. Thank you for being with us.
Pleasure to be here. Don't worry, I've had my coffee. I'm good to go.
Fantastic. Awesome to have you here. So Marcus, my first question to you is that you have grown through the ranks. You have done every conceivable role in the industry before becoming a CRO of an iconic tech brand. You're the man in charge to drive the growth of the company. So my question is, what keeps you awake at night? Is it the quarterly target? Is it the next investor meeting? Or is it, going and talking about the results to the market? Or the next disruption in technology?
Yeah, look, it's a great question. So, luckily I sleep pretty well at night because I've been able to build a very good team, and I don't particularly worry about the quarter or the financial analysts or the results. So the reason is that they're the outcomes, and my job is to control the process which drives the outcomes. And as long as we focus on the correct leading indicators, my world is all about leading indicators. Is my funnel big enough? Am I ramping my reps quick enough? Do I have enough coverage in growing markets? Those are the things that I probably worry about more than the outcomes, because I've learned trying to focus on the numbers is not the right thing. It's focus on the activities you need to do to the outcomes. The one thing I think keeps all good CROs awake at night is talent acquisition. So how am I going to make sure that I get enough talent to sustain and accelerate growth is probably the one that I wrestle with the most, because Gen Zs, which are now entering the workplace, have a very different set of needs. To people like me, I turned 50 this year. I'm happy to work whenever. I don't mind if I work Saturdays, Sundays. I choose to work when I want to work. I like work. But the younger generations think differently. So we have to accept that flexible working places will be normal. And that's one of the things that keeps me awake the most. How do I make sure I get the next great talent to take Juniper to its full potential?
Fantastic. So I guess, my key takeaway, and which are my two favorite taglines, as a growth driver of the company, there are two funnels to manage. One is the demand funnel, which you rightly talked about, and second is the talent funnel. So, and especially, once you manage these two as leading indicators, that becomes almost your toolkit for growth, for predicting growth over the next, few quarters or few years and things like that. And given, obviously, you will have to stay on top of your technology curve and everything else what is required with it. So, you'll spend a long time in sales and in marketing and, doing various functions. If I have to look at your advice for budding CROs, budding head of sales, or budding founders, CEOs, right? Especially in the new tech world, what is a toolkit, or what's a playbook for driving growth consistently and in a sustainable fashion?
That's a great one. Look, when you start in your sales career, and I was a pretty good individual contributor. I mean, I wasn't the best salesperson in the world, but I could hold my own. I had some very good results, as a young man in this business. And you think it's all about you. You think that you're bringing something unique to the table, your relationship skills, your entrepreneurialism, your creativity, whatever it is. And you have that feeling probably for the first 4 or 5 years of your career. Then as you go through, you realize actually a lot of it's about structure. And then when you get right to the top of your career, and whether that's CRO, CEO, VP, whatever level you want to make to, you realize it's mainly about repeatable processes. It's mainly about, scaling a business is about repeating, and it's about getting that lowest average up. So the toolkit that you need to do is you need to be very analytical. You have to be able to manipulate data very quickly. You have to be able to scale teams based on not everyone being brilliant. I mean, the amount of companies I see, and I advise a lot of startups, directly invest in a lot of startups, where they're trying to base their sales strategy on the 2 brilliant salespeople they have. That's not repeatable. You've got to base your successful sales strategy on maybe the worst salesperson you have with the worst product in the worst region. If you can get them to be productive, the geniuses will sort it out. You can't. I've got some fantastic people, but I can't replicate those people worldwide. They don't exist. So therefore, it's about this mean of averages. The second biggest thing that people get confused about is leading indicators and lagging indicators. You need to know the difference and be very clear in your mind. What am I measuring which is going to lead to success? Arguably, people talk about forecasting a lot, and the forecasting of businesses is difficult, getting accurate forecasts. It's really not that difficult if you put the process in place. But even a forecast is a lagging indicator, and people think it's a leading indicator. It's not. A forecast is basically, these deals are going to close at some point, however you do your forecast. It's the work's done to close those deals. So and too many people spend time on that. Activity reports are incredibly important, those kind of things. And then 2 key indicators, as you talked about. Sorry, Vinod, this is Deb, this is a very long answer, but there's 2 key indicators that people forget. It's also how fast you can ramp up your salespeople. Ramp time from being fresh in your business to being fully productive is important. And then also your attrition rate. If your attrition rate of productive reps or SEs or whatever you have in your business is high, you will never scale. You have to realize you've got to deal with a leaking bucket. You can pour as many people in as you want, but if you're losing talent, and it's amazing to me how many great CROs still lose so much talent they can never grow their business. So you need to address that and own that as well.
Fantastic. I guess you covered all my questions in one answer. Yeah, the follow through of those questions. Yeah, exactly. So that's our experience, and I think that counts. But I'll definitely, my takeaway is what you covered. I think the first point is very, very important. You can't really build your business just on A players. As you scale, as you grow, you have to have, and that's the reality of life. Whether it's soccer, whether it's anything else, or football or anything, you don't always have A players, right? You will have a mix of players. How does a team function? That's what is the most important thing. I think that's a key takeaway. You have to plan your business, you have to plan your processes, you have to plan your scale based on a combination of these factors. So that's point number 1. Point number 2, what you really said is, right, we get obsessed in sales business, we get obsessed with forecasting. But it's not really forecast which matters. It is what has gone into the engagements, how you've created the customer value, how you've engaged, at what level you have engaged. I think those activities is what matters, right?
Yes.
So how you have managed your account, your relationship, your value proposition, everything, that matters a lot. So pretty much the third thing which you mentioned is your time to productivity, especially with your most productive rep, so that you ensure that you give them a career path. There is you're able to cater to their aspiration, to their growth aspiration, so that they don't, they feel that they're growing along with the organization. I think that's the most important thing. As we start scaling, if you start losing people, like if we lose customers, if there's a churn rate, it's a leaky bucket. You will never be able to scale beyond a point.
But there is an important thing there, Deb. Sorry to interrupt, but it's understanding your ramp time. Everyone, as a CRO, you've got to be pretty strong across the company, because your CEO, your CFO, maybe your head of engineering, if you have one, all of your other C-level are expert in sales. Everyone's an expert in sales, by the way, because they think it's simple. The key is your ramp time of productivity is your ramp time. And if it historically over the last 5 years has taken, I don't know, let's say 3 quarters to get a rep fully productive, and your new business plan says they've got to be fully productive in 6 months, you will fail. You cannot shrink a ramp time quickly. You need to constantly work on it and get it better and better, but it doesn't change quickly. And that's the thing with leading indicators. They don't move very quickly. If you say, like, oh, each rep will do 10% more next year, each rep will get to productivity a month earlier. No, they won't. It's not possible. So build your business plan on what history has shown you, and then work relentlessly to improve those small metrics, and you will overachieve. But if your business plan is based on overachievement of productivity and ramp time, you will fail. Full stop. I mean, and I've learned that the hard way.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant point you're making. I think most founders, most CEOs, most CROs make that assumption that, look, just because I'm hiring 100 people, 100 SEs and 100 AEs, account managers or sales engineers, they're going to, in next 3 months, they're going to be fully productive and things like that. So you're spot on. And also, no matter how much time you spend on screening them, that you're hiring all the best quality and things like that, that itself not going to ensure that your productivity comes out on the right side. I think that's. But just a quick question. As we are talking, if I'm an early stage company, how do I determine that cycle? Because it's very difficult. When you are a company which is 10-year-old or 15-year-old, you have some trend analysis. Mm-hmm. Let's say if I'm a 5-year-old company, because most of the customers we cater to could be unicorns of tomorrow, mm-hmm. or could be let's put it the next the next big bet for tomorrow. But when they're in the early stage, how do you get the historical trend analysis when you don't have so much of history? What do you go with?
Yeah, like it's interesting. And of course, the world now, well, the IT world is obsessed with this word unicorn, which I really dislike, because unfortunately, a unicorn looks the same as a donkey with a horn stuck to it. Okay. So let's be clear, unicorns are, the word is being used too much. Unicorns are, as you know, pre-exit, whether it's IPO or not, $1 billion valuation, profitable, scale, high growth companies.
Okay.
Very few people who call themselves unicorns meet that. They either don't make any money, or they run an expense to sales achievement, which is so ridiculous it won't scale post IPO. So, and I'm sure I've seen companies which are spending 50-60% of their OPEX on sales. That tells you something. That tells you the product is not that good. Honestly, you cannot be spending 60-70% of your cost in sales. Early stage, yes, first year, maybe Series A or pre-seed, yes, of course. But once you get into, B series, C, D, and if you're going to an E, you need to be way more. And I would never invest in a company which has an E to SA that high in its later stage of funding. So a little tip, if people are out there looking for funding from VCs and angels, you got to get to a profitable model quicker. The key to it in the early days is experiment. And what I say is controlled experiment, because in the lack of, you're not going to have the data. You're absolutely right. And then the worst thing you can do is try and create what I call anecdata, which is a cross between anecdote and data. Yeah, it's like, I saw this once, so therefore it's true. And any mathematician listening to this will realize that's never the case. So effectively, you need to iterate. So what I always advise people to do is split their teams into and try different things with each team. So you've got to compare and contrast. And you've got to be bold. You've got to experiment, and to a certain extent, you've got to trust your instincts. But there's somebody that will tell you how to do it, and that's your customer. Your customers, if you listen, and I mean properly listen, will tell you how to go about what you need to do. So I always advise everyone, get 2 or 3 anchor customers which are really, really in bed with you, on the page with you. Honestly, make them advisors, seriously, if they're allowed to, give them a small equity stake so they're on that journey with you. And then that helps you propagate and then fine tune that model before. But in the early days, experimentation will lead to data will lead to a plan, and a plan then you can exceed.
Fantastic. So Marcus, I want to take you on the comment on unicorn, and I know you have very, very strong views about I would say, the financial markets obsession about the recurring revenue model, or the so-called subscription model, vis-a-vis the perpetual model. And I really wanted to get your head around, how do you see this evolving? Because you've been on both sides of the table, and also as an investor, you see many such companies. So how do you see? Because on one hand, you're seeing the so-called subscription model, or the recurring revenue model, is getting some abnormal, I would say, multiples on their revenue or whatever, or order book they do, or things like that. So that's one, vis-a-vis the perpetual model. So do you think it is sustainable in the long term? That's number one, or it is just a passing phenomena? And number two, just a follow through, how have you seen, in your own experience, driving growth in Juniper, customers actually adopting to this, because at the end of the day, we are here to serve customers. So are customers really obsessed about getting something on a subscription, vis-a-vis buying perpetual models? So 2 parts to this question.
Yeah, we discussed this before, Deb. It's a great question, and it's going to be, please interrupt me, because there's quite a long answer to this, and let me try and break it off in points. The first thing is, I look at my own business, and where I think the market is slightly getting it wrong is, we have I won't go through detailed financials of our company, because obviously it's not an SEC regulated call, but we have a very large recurring revenue software business. If we took that business as it was and looked at its growth rate, its profitability, and obviously its CAC, customer acquisition cost to LTV, it would probably, and carved it out of our other business, which is obviously selling hardware and services and those other pieces, it would probably be the more market cap than we are at the moment as a total company. So when I look at that financial argument and I speak to the financial analysts about this, I'm confused. I go, you must see within our business, we have hundreds of millions of dollars of recurring revenue of software with a very low, with a high attach rate, high growth rate. Why do you not give us better valuation on that? It's almost like it's because it's wrapped into a hardware business, they don't like it. So I do think there's a maturing of the analysts to dig deeper into your balance sheet and your P&L to understand which companies have these things. There's nothing wrong as well with running a hardware services and system business which makes money either. Again, the core of our business throws off a lot of cash, way more cash than a lot of ACV companies would know what to do with, and it's very profitable, and it delights customers. Customers need this stuff. So I think I don't love one or dislike the other. I think that good companies provide customer outcomes and customer experiences. And whether that is based on hardware, software, or a combination of the two, it shouldn't matter as much. And I do believe the market will start moving towards that. There's some political things going on today, obviously, as we know, and I think that the market will look for safe haven companies away from hyper growth ACV. The other thing is that we've combined two thought trains, is that recurring revenue streams are the proclivity of software companies. Why? Is it easier to do a recurring revenue stream with software? Of course there is, because technically there's no actual cost of goods. But we spoke about this. I quite often fly to an airport and take a rental car. Is that not an ACV of a capital item? Is other things that you rent in your life? If you charter a boat to go fishing, there are thousands of examples of a recurring revenue stream based on capital, big capital, actually. And so it's more difficult, but it's not impossible to do a recurring revenue stream based off a system. And if you think about what a cloud company does, what an Amazon does, it's exactly what they do. I mean, Amazon spends a lot of money with us, a lot of money with other people, huge amount of capital, and turns it into an ACV. So they're actually linked. So the funny thing is that you can go and do these things. There are huge advantages in the, I will say, present economic climate for recurring revenue streams. We live in a world of massively low interest rates for a period of 20 years almost. Money is cheap. Obsession with P&L performance against balance sheet has been the purview of the market. They really want to see growth in P&L and care less about balance sheet unless you're a defensive kind of stock. And so that's right. But we got to realize that the world's going to change. Money supply will dry up a little bit. Money's going to get more expensive. Interest rates, as we know, are going to have to rise. Inflation is horrendous at the moment. I mean, honestly, inflation, they say, is running at 7%. It feels to me that your cost of living is going up by more than 7%, 10% probably. So if money value is getting destroyed over time with inflation, and then capital goods, actually, could they become more attractive? Could you then purchase something, be aggressive on the write down, knowing that the income you make will have a higher monetary value in the future? Do the financials look exactly the same? No. The second thing the final point on that is that there's almost a bit of a pushback with large customers now towards recurring revenue streams because they get trapped into them. So it's very easy to get in, but it's also very difficult to get out. So I think what the world of subscription has done is it's made things more democratized, more consumable, easier to deploy, faster. Yeah, I get all that. It's brilliant, but there needs to be a balance. And I think the companies have a balance are both. So I don't like one over the other. I like both my children. I love both my children the same. So I'm happy with both parts of the business.
Excellent. So in summary, you're happy to be on a 2-speed boat, which is fantastic, as long as it serves the purpose, as long as customers like it. Absolutely, and there can be two kinds of customers as well. So that's pretty clear in terms of. But one of the benefits, forget the financial model for a moment. If we keep the financial model aside, one of the benefits of cloud, the so-called benefit of cloud, is easier consumption of innovation, especially for digital products or software products and things like that. So, do you think because what is said, that typically, if you come from a software, because you have a software business as well, if you come from a perpetual software license where you have to wait for years for the upgrades or the patches or the next releases to happen, vis-a-vis a continuous release of innovation patches and bug fixes and things like that, which continues to happen on a quarterly, monthly kind of a basis.
Yeah.
That's the other advantage why I would say adoption of cloud, subscription is anyway a consumption model, but adoption of cloud and things like that accelerated because it's easier to consume new innovation. So what's your take on that?
Oh yeah, look, I mean, that's a different thing. I think, again, we talked about, everyone confuses the three things like recurring revenue streams, capital, and software. Cloud is something different. Cloud is the ability. Cloud gives a very different delivery mechanism for those softwares, which is predominantly ACV, recurring revenue streams, and that's fine. I mean, and that's the way it should be. We as a company fundamentally want to deliver everything from the cloud. I mean, just in case of, look at some of our solutions we have at the edge of our network, Mist, what we call our intelligent wireless edge. We're able to update the software every 2 to 4 weeks, so everyone gets all of their bug fixes, patches done immediately. There's no rollback, there's no thinking about that. You've taken all of that pressure away from the IT department, and obviously that's a huge benefit. You're able to deliver new features. You're able to, if you're a CFO, buy the scale you need, not the scale you want. There is a problem, honestly, when you buy capital equipment, you're overbuying it, because effectively you are, if you think about it, you buy a new network, it's over provisioned for the first year, it's probably good for the next 2 years, and then it's probably under provisioned for the last year. So there is that problem with cloud. You never get that, but you pay for that pleasure. It's like, again, renting a car or buying a car. You could go and rent a new car every day for a period of 5 years, and it will be a much better experience for you, but it's going to cost a hell of a lot compared to buying your own car and then running it down the depreciation curve. So there's no such thing as a free lunch, but what we've seen is the market respond to liking the flexibility that the cloud brings. The biggest thing also, connecting to the cloud gives us data and insight to how people are operating, so we can make the experience even better. So instead of having to talk to the customer about what they're finding, we can see in real time. And we're then able to use AI and other tools to make that experience better and better. So cloud delivered is 100% makes things a lot easier. And it has to be the future of our business for both hardware and software, actually.
Fantastic. So maybe just one follow-through question on the same track, which I possibly missed asking. Given that we talked about having both the perpetual model as well as the subscription model in your current business, as a CRO, when you look at the customer engagement of the sales team, of the customer engagement teams and things like that, is it hard to make the shift for the salespeople who's used to doing one lumpy deal, vis-a-vis signing a subscription deal, and keeping them motivated, where they're comped, where they're incentivized, and so on and so forth? So, some of those operational issues, as a CRO, I'm sure those are some of the considerations you have to deal with it on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I've got a very strong look. There's zero difference about selling capital equipment and recurring revenue streams. It's perceived to be different from people that have never sold anything. It's actually the same. The difference becomes whether you're selling business to consumer, that's a different kind of sale. Business to business is a different kind of sale. And then there's product and solution and outcome selling. So the 3 levels of business to business selling, you can sell a product, i.e., I don't know, you're a house builder and somebody's selling you steel. Okay, that's selling a product. It's your price, your quality versus somebody else. There's no solution to it. It's just sell me the steel. The second one is then selling a solution, which could be selling, pre-manufactured, prefabricated steel. So it's slightly more complicated. We can pre-build it to your designs, blah, 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 blah. And then the third one is selling an outcome, where you're basically saying, what business problems you have, I can give you a whole wrapped up solution to do that. We're fundamentally in the outcome selling space, and that can be both subscription or capital. The difference comes in the measures. The difference comes from, in a capital business, you will measure typically we measure what's called E to SA, expense to sales achievement. How much is my sales team costing as a percentage of my sales bookings that I'm getting? And you measure to that metric and get productivity. In the ACV, recurring revenue stream, you measure CAC to LTV, customer acquisition cost to long-term value. So it's slightly different. So what you've got to do is, it's very hard to motivate one team to do both, because let's say some of my team have $100 million target. Okay, an individual can have $100 million target. if I then said, hey, I want you to go and help me seed our next ACV thing, and it's going to have a 50K target, how do I get attention to that?
Exactly.
Do I pay 100 times on the ACV? Well, that's not going to work, because then my CAC is horrible. So you have to separate your team. So what I've found is you can't really have one team selling capitally led and then ACV. And I think in the future they could merge, but at the moment I separate the two actions between two different sales teams.
Okay, got it. So I think that helps you to, be able to position both, with the clients. So got that. So my final question, Marcus, to you is, as a CRO, in this world where things are changing every day, so what's the role you think, a CRO should play in embracing reading to the market conditions or the market disruptions?
Great question. I think you got three main jobs. I think your first job is you have to be the voice of the customer. So you have to be the person that at the board, the E-staff, whatever level you are, to have the voice of the customer and have those battles clearly, because you'll find that everyone thinks they're customer focused. I mean, I always laugh when I see a company saying, we're obsessed with the customer. Well, what else can you be? You can't go and say, I'm not a customer focused organization. Why would you say that? It's crazy. So every company says it's customer focused. You have to be the voice of that. The second thing is you have to be the voice of the sales organization. And clearly sales. So because sales teams often get kind of put into positions where they can't be successful. So you've got to explain and be very tough with the CFO, the CEO, whoever else you have at your board level, to explain some of the stupid mistakes you can make by saying something or doing something, and that is a big part of the job, is re-explaining how sales operates, because you're dealing with human capital. Most other people are dealing with a product or a spreadsheet. You're dealing with people, and so it's very different to make sure that you can explain that in a different thing. And then the third thing is, I think to be incredibly successful is to understand that you run sales, not sellers. So if you asked me 10 years ago where the role of CRO is becoming the new role, it used to be, key commercial officer or whatever, everyone had different names. But the name CRO really got coined, I guess, about 10 years ago, is that you're no longer just running the sellers, you're the head of sales, you're running every aspect. Marketing and sales is merged. So you have to have a view on automation of sales. You have to have a view on augmentation of sales, on data manipulation, on brand. So you need to understand all the aspects and realize you don't just run a sales team, you run the sales for the company. It's two different things, including CX, which we didn't touch on, a lot of customer experience. So that's kind of how I see it.
Thank you. So really appreciate your time, Marcus. And I think it was wonderful. Thanks.
No problem. Good to see you guys. Thanks for the time.